Victor Brunette was living in Richmond, Virginia in 1970. He cared for his grandmother at night and was getting ready to get his career started. Everything changes on August 5th of that year when a local woman identified him as the man who raped her. Brunette would be convicted of the crime and spent 3 decades fighting to clear his name before DNA testing cleared him in 2009. In the early morning hours on August 3rd, 1979, an 18-year-old woman went to sleep in her first-floor apartment, where she lived alone, after a night out with her friends. Due to very hot weather, she left the main door and the drapes open and locked only the secret door. She woke up at 3 a.m. to find a man on top of her. He told her to stay still and sexually assaulted her. The victim testified that as the attacker was leaving, she got a very good look at him in the moonlight shining from the window. After she was attacked, the victim used the hall phone to call the police. She described her rapist as a white man about 5 feet 8 inches tall, with long blonde hair and a mustache. The victim's teeth was collected as evidence and she was taken to the hospital where a rape kit was collected. The following night, the victim was sleeping at her boyfriend's house when she heard noises from the street at 2 a.m. She looked out of the window and felt certain that she saw her attacker. Hiding her face, she called out to him to hear his voice, and she was sure from his response that it was her rapist's voice she heard. He left the area, and she did not inform the police of this sighting. The next day, she met with a detective in an unmarked car in front of other apartments to put together a composite drawing. While with the detective, she noticed Victor Brunette walking down the street. Upon being spotted, he promptly walked in the opposite direction. Another officer apprehended him a short time later with an open can of beer in a nearby alley. The victim identified as her attacker, although he had a beard and wore glasses, and she did not mention these features in her description of the attack. State forensic analyst Mary Jane Burton testified at Brunette's trial that she examined public hairs from the rape kit and the victim's sheet. She said one hair was consistent with Brunette, others with the victim, and yet another was consistent with neither Brunette nor the victim. She also determined that sperm cells were present on the vaginal swab from the rape kit. Serology testing, however, only showed the presence of type A blood antigens. She testified that the victim was a type A and Brunette was a non-sector. Brunette testified that he was at the bar from 11 p.m. to about 2 a.m. on the night of the attack. After leaving the bar, he said he returned to his home, which was 2 blocks from the victim's apartment. He was a night caregiver for his blind and swollen grandmother, who confirmed that Brunette arrived home just after 2 a.m. They spoke briefly and she heard him go to sleep. During the police investigation, Brunette had incorrectly told the detective that he was home the entire evening. At trial, he admitted to confusing that night with another night and that his drinking problem caused this memory confusion. Brunette also testified that he had walked away from the detective and victim when they were in the car because he had an open can of beer and did not want to be stopped by police. The jury convicted Brunette of rape and burglary and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. In December 2005, Brunette read an article in the Richmond Times-Dispatch detailing how Julius Earl Ruffin and Arthur Whitefield had been cleared of their convictions through DNA evidence. Here's where comes restriction fragment length polymorphism. It is the use of restriction enzymes to cut the DNA strand into different lengths. These lengths are unique to a person, making this technique very useful in the process of DNA analysis in crimes. It was the first step for them to do in his case to identify his DNA. Later on, they used the SCR to identify what is repeated in his DNA sequence. SCRs are short sequences of DNA that are repeated numerous times in a head-tail manner. The short tandem repeat locations consist of repetitive elements of 3-7 nucleotides. The polymerase chain reaction, which is also known as PCR, makes it possible to analyze very small amounts of DNA. SCR locations from partly degraded DNA may be successfully better because the SCR locations to be amplified are very short. Investigations of polymorphism of SCR location using PCR is great value in identity and genetic testing. RFLP takes advantage of the fact that certain enzymes will cut DNA at specific sites, and if there are mutations at one of those sites, you will get different DNA lengths, which cleaving it with the particular enzyme. FBI created a system of DNA profile indexes, the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS. This system, officially activated in October 1998, allows participating forensic laboratories to compare DNA profiles with the goal of matching case evidence to other previously unrelated cases or to persons already convicted of specific crimes. According to FBI statistics as of February 2001, CODIS was instrumental in providing leads in 1,733 investigations nationwide. The purpose of CODIS is to generate investigative leads by identifying matches between these categories. A continued life of crime or high incidence of habit in criminals is the concept upon which the DNA database program is based. The success of CODIS is demonstrated by thousands of matches that have linked serial cases to each other, and cases that have been solved by matching crime scene evidence to known convicted offenders. Both cases involved evidence that was supposedly lost until it was later discovered in the files of decreased serologist Mary Jane Burton. Brunette immediately recognized her name as the serologist who testified at his trial. He contacted the lab and requested another search for evidence from his case. In 2006, DNA tests were conducted on the evidence from the rape and on samples from both the victim and Brunette. The comparison proved that Brunette was not the source of the semen from the crime scene.
I was wrongly convicted in 1978 for rape and burglary. I spent 8 years in prison. I was paroled in 1987. Even though I've been out of prison for 22 years, my life could never be the same with the charge hanging over me. It has taken me 30 years of my life to prove my innocence. I was pardoned by Governor Tim Kaine this past April. The DNA cleared me. It's kind of a bittersweet because all my family and friends, friends and family except my sister had died. These are the people who supported me through these hard times. Not a day goes by that I don't think about my dad. He never missed a visit with my sister. Prison was hard on me, but it was even harder when I saw him. Damn, I missed my dad. I have no doubt that he knew I was innocent, but it would have been nice for him to know that I had gotten his pardon. Sometimes I feel like I've spent most of my life trying to get back what has been taken from me, just to watch more go out the door. I'd like to thank Sean Armburst and the Innocence Project for having me here. Y'all guys are my heroes. I also like to thank John Gerson for a super book. Thank you all.